And Jesus, knowing that a power had gone forth from him, knowing that someone had received healing, turned and said, "Where is she?" And finally she came forward and she said, "It was I, Lord." And Jesus said, "Go. Your faith has made you well." And then, as Jesus was going along with Jairus, some folks from his household came and said, "Your daughter has died. Leave the teacher alone. There's nothing more he can do." But Jesus said, "It is not so. Let us go. The little girl is only asleep." And so they went on to the house, and when he got there, he found them mourning over the death. And he said, "Don't worry. She's only asleep." And they laughed at him. They said, "No, she has died. There's nothing you can do." And so he sent them all out. And he went upstairs. And he took the little girl by the hand. And he said, "Arise." And she got up. And he said, "Give her food. She will be well." And Jesus went on teaching and preaching, healing, proclaiming the year of the Lord's favor, telling the people, the kingdom of God is among you, the kingdom of God is within you. And he taught even more strange things. He talked about the kingdom of God as a mustard seed, a seed that the farmers in the countryside hated because it was a weed. It got into their crops, and it caused so many problems for them. And Jesus said that's what the kingdom of God is like. It's like a weed that grows up. It's like a thing that is so small, but it changes everything. That's what the kingdom of God is like. And some were perplexed by his teaching. Some accepted it, and some opposed him. And so Jesus went on. He continued to proclaim the kingdom of God. He continued to heal. He proclaimed, "The Lord is with you." He kept his disciples close. And one day, they made their way up a mountain. And at the top of the mountain, suddenly, there was a voice from the sky that said, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased." Now this voice had come before. At the time of Jesus' baptism, he had gone to a man named John the Baptist. And John had said, "I am not worthy to baptize you. You should be baptizing me." Jesus said, "No, this is the way it must be." And so he was baptized. And as he was coming up out of the water, the skies opened up. A light shined on him, a dove descended upon him. And a voice from heaven said, "You are my Son. With you I am well pleased." Well, on this mountaintop, the disciples heard it, and then they saw Jesus transformed before them. He appeared to be glowing and dressed in brightest white. And there with them were Moses and Elijah, prophets, one of whom who had died, one of whom who had been carried away in a chariot to heaven. There they were. And the disciples had no idea what to do. And so they said, "Let us build you tents. Let us pitch tents here, and we will have a wonderful time. We will learn from Moses and Elijah and from you." Jesus said, "No. Now is not the time for that. We still have work to do. Let us be going." And so they moved on. And Jesus continued to preach, to proclaim, to teach, to heal, to touch those who were so lowly, who were thought to be the scum of the earth. And one time he had gone into a teacher's house, and in the house he sat down to dinner. And there was a woman in that town who was known to be a prostitute, who was known to be one of the greatest sinners. And so she came into the house, and she wept. And with her tears, she bathed Jesus' feet. With her hair, she wiped his feet dry. And then she took perfume, and she anointed his feet with that perfume. And the teacher, whose house it was, thought to himself, if Jesus knew who this was, knew what a sinner she was, he would not even let her touch him. And Jesus turned to the teacher and said, "I have a question for you. There was a man who owed 5,000 denarii and another man who And Jesus said, so it is with the kingdom of God. Those who are forgiven much will show great gratitude, and those who have been forgiven little will show little. He said, I walked into your house. You offered me nowhere to wash my feet, but she washed my feet with her tears. You offered me no towel to dry my hands, but she dried my feet with her hair. You offered me no blessing, but she anointed my feet with perfume. Whenever this story of me is told, her story will be told also. And so he continued to proclaim the good news. He continued to say, what you have seen the world as is not so. And then he went into Jerusalem. And on his way into Jerusalem, the crowds that had followed him began to celebrate because they thought this was the time. The kingdom of God will be established on the earth now. And so they celebrated. God's kingdom was finally coming. The shackles were going to be thrown off. And finally, the redemption of the people of Israel that would also bring the redemption of the world was at hand. After that celebration, Jesus continued on into the city. And that evening, he wandered into the temple. And he prayed. And he observed. And he learned what was going on at the temple. And Jesus was disturbed. For he saw exploitation. He saw people taking advantage of the power that they had there in the temple. And Jesus knew that this was not the way of God. Exploiting the poor, exploiting those who were beneath you is not the way of God. And so the next day, Jesus came into the temple in a rage. He tossed over tables. He was cracking a whip. He was driving out those who had exploited God and exploited the people of God. And he said, my house is called to be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. Jesus proclaimed this because of what they had done with God, what they had done with their religion, and what they had done to the poor. So at that point, the powerful men of Jerusalem began to conspire together. They said, this man cannot continue to live. He is dangerous to us. He is dangerous to our people. They said, he will take away our power, but also, and this is how we will convince the people. This is how we will get the people on our side. He will bring Rome. He will bring all the power of Rome down on our people. They will kill us all because he is stirring them up. He is convincing them that the kingdom of God is at hand, and Rome will come against us. And so they conspired. And in the midst of their conspiracy, they found one within Jesus' inner circle who said, I don't like what Jesus is doing. I thought he was doing something different. And so I will deliver him to you. And they said, we will pay you 30 pieces of silver. And so, that night, Jesus gathered together with his disciples, with his closest friends. And he taught them things that they continued to not fully understand. First, he took a pitcher and a basin, and he poured water, and he took a towel, and he began washing their feet. This was their leader, their teacher, their master, their Lord. This was the man who was going to usher in the kingdom of God. What was he doing? Washing their feet. And Peter couldn't even take it. Peter, his closest disciple, said, no, I will not have it. You are my Lord and my master. I will not have you washing my feet. And Jesus said, this is the only way you can be a part of me, is if I serve you, and then you serve those that I give you. He told the disciples, learn from my lesson. Learn from this moment. I am teaching you how to be in the Lord. If I, your Lord and master, am your servant, be a servant to those that I give you.